I was shocked to discover that my parents publicly gifted my house to my sister at her engagement party, the same house I had spent $30,000 renovating. My mom casually announced, "You need to move out." Later, my sister texted me, "Move out immediately. You have 2 days." So, I quietly hired a crew and gave them a surprise they never expected. You want to know the exact moment my world imploded? It wasn't when my sister announced her engagement to Derek, a guy she'd been dating for exactly 8 months and who still lived in his mom's basement. It wasn't even when my parents threw her that ridiculously over-the-top engagement party with the ice sculpture shaped like wedding rings and the champagne fountain that probably cost more than most people's cars. No, it was when my mother stood up in front of 60 people, tapped her crystal glass with that stupid silver spoon she only uses for special occasions, and announced with the brightest, most genuine smile I'd ever seen her wear, and as our engagement gift to Rachel and Derek, we're giving them Emma's house. Emma's house. The house I'd been living in for 3 years. The house where I'd spent my first weekend ripping out water-damaged drywall with my bare hands, finding black mold behind half the walls. The house where I'd worked every single weekend for 8 months straight, installing new plumbing, rewiring the electrical system, and putting in hardwood floors that I'd sanded and stained myself until my back screamed and my knees wouldn't bend. The house where I'd spent $30,000 of my own hard-earned money I'd saved for 2 years by eating ramen and skipping vacations, turning a condemned disaster into something that belonged in a home design magazine. But apparently, it was never my house at all. The silence that followed Mom's announcement felt like someone had sucked all the oxygen out of the elegantly decorated ballroom. I watched Rachel's face transform from genuine confusion to pure, unadulterated delight, her eyes lighting up like she'd just won the lottery. Derek pumped his fist in the air like his favorite football team had scored a touchdown, then immediately started calculating property values out loud at anyone who'd listen. The guests, our extended family friends, people who'd known me since I was in diapers, started clapping and cheering like they just witnessed something magical instead of the complete destruction of my life. Actually clapping. For my eviction. "Emma, dear," Mom continued, still holding that crystal glass like she was making a toast to world peace instead of announcing my homelessness, "you'll need to move out by the end of the week, of course. Rachel and Derek want to start their new life together right away, and we all know how important it is for newlyweds to have their own space." The applause got louder. Someone in the back actually whooped. Aunt Margaret was dabbing at her eyes like she just witnessed something beautiful. Rachel was already pulling Derek toward me, probably to gloat about their unexpected windfall, her engagement ring catching the light from the chandeliers as she gestured excitedly. But I couldn't hear any of it over the roaring in my ears, like standing next to a waterfall or jet engine. 3 years of my life. $30,000. Countless hours of backbreaking work that had left me with permanent calluses and a trick shoulder that still ached when it rained. Gone. Erased. Given away like a party favor. I excused myself to the bathroom, my legs feeling like they might give out at any moment. The ladies' room was all marble and gold fixtures, the kind of place my parents chose when they wanted to impress people. I locked the door and gripped the countertop, staring at myself in the mirror like I might find some explanation written on my face. The same countertop material I'd helped Dad pick out 2 summers ago when he was renovating this very venue for his business. Back then, he'd put his arm around my shoulder and said, "You've got such good taste, kiddo. You're going to have a beautiful home someday." We'd spent hours at the stone yard, comparing samples and talking about the pros and cons of different materials. He'd valued my opinion then. Respected my knowledge. Called me his little interior designer. Apparently, someday meant never, and your beautiful home meant Rachel's beautiful home. My phone buzzed against the marble. A text from Rachel, "OMG Emma. Isn't this the most amazing surprise ever? I literally cannot believe Mom and Dad did this for us. We're going to be neighbors now. Well, not really neighbors since you'll be moving out obviously, but you know what I mean, smiley face emoji, party popper emoji, house emoji, I'm so excited I could literally die." I stared at that message for a full minute. The laughing emoji. The house emoji. The complete and utter lack of acknowledgement that this might be, oh I don't know, devastating for the person who'd been living in that house for 3 years. The person who'd turned it from a condemned wreck into something worth giving as an engagement gift. Then another text, arriving before I'd even processed the first one, "BTW, Derek and I were talking and we want to move in like ASAP because his lease is up next month anyway. Can you be out by Thursday? I know it's short notice but we're just so excited to start our life together. You totally understand, right? You're the best big sister ever, 2 hearts emoji, Thursday. 2 days away. Move out of the house I'd rebuilt from the ground up in 2 days." I splashed cold water on my face, watching my carefully applied makeup streak down my cheeks. 32 years old, successful marketing director making 6 figures, homeowner, well, former homeowner apparently, and I looked like I'd been hit by a freight train. My updo was falling apart, bobby pins scattered across the marble counter. My cocktail dress, the expensive one I bought specifically for this party because I wanted to look successful and put together for Rachel's big day, was wrinkled from clutching my purse too tightly. When I walked back into the party, the celebration was in full swing. Rachel was holding court near the dessert table, showing off her engagement ring to a growing cluster of aunts and cousins. The ring caught the light beautifully, a 2-carat solitaire that probably cost Derek 3 months' salary, if he even had a salary. Last I'd heard, he was between opportunities in the tech sector, which seemed to be Derek speak for unemployed but optimistic. Derek himself was already deep in conversation with Dad about property values and investment potential and the importance of getting into the housing market while you're young. Each word hit me like a physical blow. Investment potential. Of the house I'd invested everything in. Property values. That I'd increased with my own sweat and savings. Getting into the housing market. With a free house. A house that wasn't free, it had cost me $30,000 in 3 years of my life. There you are. Mom appeared at my elbow with that bright, brittle smile she wore when she was pretending everything was perfectly normal. We were wondering where you'd disappeared to. Isn't this just wonderful? Rachel is absolutely over the moon. Mom, I said quietly, trying to keep my voice steady, we need to talk. Privately. Oh, not now, dear. We have guests to entertain. She waved dismissively toward the crowd. Besides, this is Rachel's day. We can talk about logistics later. Logistics. Like my life was a shipping problem to be solved. I spent $30,000 renovating that house, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Well, that was your choice, wasn't it? Mom's smile never wavered, but her voice had that edge it got when she was annoyed. No one asked you to do all that work. You just took it upon yourself. The casual cruelty of it knocked the breath out of my lungs. No one asked me? Dad had literally driven me to the house 3 years ago, handed me the keys, and said it needed someone with vision and energy to bring it back to life. Mom had spent hours with me at Home Depot, helping me choose paint colors and fixtures. They both praised every improvement, every upgrade, every sign of progress. You have such an eye for design, Mom used to say when she'd stop by to check on my work. This place is going to be absolutely stunning when you're done with it. And now they were acting like I'd been some kind of volunteer, working on a house that was never mine to begin with. Where am I supposed to go? I asked, hating how small my voice sounded. Oh, you'll figure something out. You always do. She patted my arm absently, already looking past me toward the champagne fountain where someone was loudly recounting a story about Rachel's childhood. Maybe get a nice apartment in the city. It might be good for you to try something different. Spread your wings a little. Spread my wings. At 32. After being essentially evicted from the home I'd rebuilt from the foundation up. Besides, she added, adjusting her pearls with that satisfied expression she wore when she felt particularly clever, you don't really need all that space anyway. It's much more practical for a young couple starting their family. Starting their family. Rachel, who'd never held a job for more than 6 months because something was always wrong with her bosses or her coworkers or the company culture. Rachel, who still had Mom do her laundry because she didn't trust herself not to ruin her nice clothes. Rachel, who'd been engaged twice before and broken it off both times when the wedding planning got too overwhelming and she needed space to find herself. That Rachel was ready to start a family in the house I'd created. I spent the rest of the party moving through the crowd like a ghost, accepting congratulations from relatives who assumed I was thrilled about this turn of events. How generous of your parents, they kept saying, patting my shoulder like I'd personally gifted the house to Rachel. Your sister is so lucky to have such supportive family. What a blessing for them to start their marriage with such a beautiful home. Lucky Rachel. Blessed Rachel. Rachel, who was currently squealing to our cousin Michelle about how she was going to totally redecorate everything to match our style and maybe knock out that weird wall in the kitchen to make it more open concept. The weird wall that I'd carefully reinforced when I discovered it was load-bearing. The kitchen I designed and installed myself after tearing out the old cabinets that were literally held together with duct tape and prayers. Our style. Their style. Like my 3 years of work had just been keeping the house warm for them. I managed to slip away before the cake cutting, claiming I had a headache that was becoming very real. Nobody seemed particularly concerned about my departure, they were all too busy celebrating Rachel's incredible good fortune. The drive home felt like moving through a dream. Or a nightmare. Home. Could I even call it that anymore? Apparently, I'd been living in someone else's house for 3 years without knowing it. A house that could be given away at a party without so much as a heads up, let alone compensation for the small fortune I'd invested in making it habitable. I pulled into my driveway, Rachel's driveway now, I supposed, and sat in the car for several minutes, really looking at the house I thought was mine. The porch light I'd installed myself glowed warmly against the cream-colored siding. The flower boxes I built and planted were bursting with late summer blooms, dahlias and cosmos and trailing ivy that had taken 2 seasons to establish properly. The shutters I'd painted that perfect sage green last spring looked exactly right against the cream siding, just like I'd envisioned when I'd spent hours comparing paint samples. It was beautiful. It really, truly was. Better homes and gardens beautiful. The kind of house people slowed down to admire when they walked through the neighborhood. And in 2 days, it would belong to Rachel and Derek. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Rachel. Hey one more teensy tiny favor. Derek was wondering if you could maybe leave some of the furniture too? We literally have nothing except his gaming chair and a futon his roommate left behind, and buying everything new would be so expensive. You totally understand, right? Plus you probably want a fresh start in your new place anyway. Win-win, 2 hearts emoji, 2 hearts emoji, 2 hearts emoji. I laughed. Actually laughed out loud, sitting there in my car like a person having a complete mental breakdown. Leave the furniture too. The custom built-in bookshelves that had cost me $800 and 2 weeks of evenings to install. The dining room table I'd found at an estate sale and spent a month refinishing to match the floors. The vintage pieces I'd hunted down at antique shops and flea markets, the ones that had taken me years to collect. Sure, Rachel. Take it all. Take my house, my furniture, my 3 years of work, and my $30,000. What's mine is yours, right? But as I sat there laughing like a maniac, something shifted inside me. The shock was wearing off, the numbness fading, replaced by something much more dangerous and infinitely more useful. Anger. Pure, white-hot, crystalline anger that cut through the confusion and hurt like a laser. They thought I was just going to roll over and accept this? Pack up my entire life in 2 days and slink away quietly while they moved into the house I created from nothing? Leave behind $30,000 worth of improvements and 3 years of my life without so much as an apology? They thought I was going to hand over my custom built-ins and my carefully chosen light fixtures and my refinished hardwood floors like I was some kind of unpaid decorator who'd just been keeping the place nice for the real owners? Well, they were about to learn something about me that apparently 3 decades of being their daughter and sister hadn't taught them. I was done being the accommodating one. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the number I was looking for. Jake Morrison, the contractor who'd helped me with the major renovations. We'd worked together for months, and he'd become something of a friend, the kind of straight-talking guy who'd tell you exactly what he thought whether you wanted to hear it or not. The kind of guy who understood that sometimes, principle mattered more than keeping the peace. Emma? His voice was gravelly, like he'd been asleep. Fair enough, it was almost 11 on a Sunday night. Everything okay? It's kind of late. Jake, I need a favor. A big one. And I need it first thing tomorrow morning. Okay. He sounded more awake now, probably picking up on something in my voice. What's going on? I told him everything. The engagement party, the surprise announcement, Rachel's demanding text, my parents' casual dismissal of my investment in the house. With each detail, I could hear Jake's breathing getting heavier on the other end of the line. Those absolute, he caught himself, probably remembering he was talking to someone's daughter about their parents. Sorry, Emma. That's really messed up. Like, really messed up. I know. And I'm going to do something about it. There was a pause. Jake had worked construction for 20 years, dealt with all kinds of people and situations. He knew the sound of someone who'd reached their breaking point. What kind of something are we talking about here? The kind that requires a crew and some very specific equipment. The kind that needs to be done fast and done right. Can you meet me at the house tomorrow morning? Early. Like, 6 a.m. early. Emma, what exactly are you planning? I looked at my house, Rachel's house, really looked at it, cataloging every improvement I'd made, every dollar I'd spent, every hour I'd invested. The porch I'd rebuilt. The windows I'd replaced. The siding I'd pressure washed and repainted. The landscaping I designed and planted and maintained. I'm planning to give them exactly what they asked for. A house. Just maybe not quite the house they're expecting. I'm not sure I like the sound of this. Jake, everything I'm planning to do is completely legal. I've got receipts for every single improvement I've made to that house. Permits for all the major work. Documentation for everything. I could hear the steel in my own voice, and it felt good. Strong. They want the house? They can have the house. The house my parents actually own. Another pause. Then, 6 a.m. it is. I'll bring the crew. I hung up and walked into my house, flipping on the lights I'd chosen so carefully. Warm LED bulbs and fixtures I'd selected to complement the crown molding I'd installed myself. The glow illuminated the hardwood floors I'd refinished plank by plank, the built-in bookshelf I'd designed to work around the awkward corner by the fireplace, the wainscoting I'd added to give the living room more character. Every single improvement was documented. Every receipt filed away in the accordion folder I kept in my home office. Every permit application saved on my computer. I'd been meticulous about the renovation, partly because I was proud of the work and partly because I'd been hoping to use some of it as a tax write-off when I eventually sold the house. Turns out, that documentation was going to be more valuable than I'd ever imagined. I spent the night making lists and phone calls, reaching out to other contractors I'd worked with over the years. By morning, I had a plan that was both completely legal and absolutely devastating. Jake showed up at exactly 6 a.m. with a truck full of equipment and 4 guys I recognized from various job sites around town. Good guys. Reliable guys. Guys who understood that sometimes, legal revenge was the sweetest revenge of all. You sure about this, Emma? Jake asked as we stood in my living room, his work boots loud against the hardwood floors that wouldn't be there much longer. Once we start, there's no going back. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. I handed him the thick folder of receipts and documentation I'd compiled. Everything we're taking out is something I installed, improved, or paid for. The original house is still going to be there. They're getting exactly what my parents actually own. Jake flipped through the folder, whistling low under his breath. Oh my gosh, Emma. 30 grand? Really? $32,418. Plus tax. Plus my labor, which I'm not even charging them for. And your family just expected you to walk away from all this? Apparently they thought I'd be grateful for the opportunity. One of Jake's crew, Tommy Kowalski, a guy who'd helped me install the kitchen cabinets, looked around the room with obvious admiration. This is really nice work, Emma. Real quality stuff. Shame to have to undo it. Not undoing it, I corrected, feeling more confident by the minute. Relocating it. Every single piece of this is going to find a new home where it's actually appreciated. We started with the hardwood floors, and let me tell you, pulling up flooring you've installed yourself is both heartbreaking and deeply satisfying. It was painstaking work, but Jake's crew knew what they were doing. Every plank came up carefully, labeled and stacked for transport, to my new apartment. Underneath was the original flooring, linoleum so hideous it looked like it had been designed by someone who actively hated human eyeballs. The built-in bookshelf was next. I designed it myself and paid a carpenter $800 to build it to my exact specifications, working around the weird corner and the heating vent, and the electrical outlet that was positioned in exactly the wrong place. It came apart in sections, revealing the plain, boring drywall behind it that looked naked and sad without the beautiful woodwork. Then came the kitchen island I'd had custom-made to match the cabinets. The pendant lights I'd found at a high-end lighting store and waited 3 months for them to come back in stock. The crown molding that had taken me 2 full weeks of evenings to install because I'd wanted every joint to be perfect. The chair rail in the dining room. The wainscoting in the entryway. The bathroom vanity I'd found at an estate sale and lovingly refinished, stripping off layers of ugly paint to reveal the beautiful oak underneath. Even the doorknobs. I'd replaced every single one in the house with brushed bronze hardware that coordinated with the light fixtures and cabinet pulls. With each piece that came out, the house transformed back into what it had been when I'd first gotten the keys 3 years ago, a tired, dated shell with good bones but absolutely no personality. No soul. No warmth. It was like watching a beautiful woman get stripped of her jewelry and makeup and elegant clothes until she was just ordinary. You know, Jake said as we loaded the last of the crown molding into his truck, your sister's going to absolutely lose her mind when she sees this. That's exactly what I'm counting on. What about your parents? I shrugged, feeling lighter than I had in years. They told me I could take my belongings when I moved out. This is all my stuff. Technically true, agreed Tommy, hoisting a section of built-in shelving. Legally bulletproof. The best kind of revenge, added Mike, another crew member who'd helped me install the bathroom tile. Completely legal and totally devastating. We worked steadily through the day, racing against time but never rushing the careful work of preserving everything for reinstallation. By late afternoon, the house was completely stripped of every single improvement I'd made over 3 years. The walls were patched and painted back to boring builder-grade white. The floors were clean but eye-searingly ugly. The kitchen looked like something you'd find in a cheap rental property. It was still a house. It was still technically livable. The plumbing worked, the electricity was up to code, the roof didn't leak. But it wasn't the house Rachel thought she was getting. It wasn't the house that had been worth giving away as an engagement gift. It was just a house. My phone had been buzzing all day with increasingly frantic texts, and I'd been ignoring every single one. But now, as Jake's crew loaded the last of my belongings into their trucks, I finally looked at the messages. Rachel, Emma, where are you? Derek and I wanted to stop by and look at our new house. We have so many ideas for how to arrange everything. Rachel, hello? Earth to Emma? Why aren't you answering your phone? Rachel, this is really rude. We're trying to plan our life here and you're being totally unresponsive. Mom, Emma, call me immediately. Rachel says you're not answering her texts. Rachel, Mom is worried about you. Can you please just text back so we know you're okay? Rachel, okay, this is getting ridiculous. We're coming over at 7 to see the house whether you're there or not. Derek has some ideas about the man cave situation. It was 6:53 p.m. when Jake's truck pulled away from the curb, loaded with the last of my custom built-ins. I stood in the empty living room, looking at what my parents had actually given Rachel and Derek, a basic, unremarkable house with decent bones and absolutely zero personality. The sound of car doors slamming in the driveway made me smile for the first time all day. Emma. Rachel's voice carried through the front door, high and excited. "We're here. Open up." I opened the door to find Rachel, Derek, and both my parents standing on the porch. Rachel was practically vibrating with excitement, clutching Derek's arm like she might float away from pure joy. Derek held a bottle of champagne and wore the expression of a man who thought he'd just hit the lottery. Mom and Dad looked pleased with themselves, like they'd just solved everyone's problems with their generous gesture. Finally, Mom said with obvious relief, "We were getting worried when you didn't return our calls. Sorry about that. I've been busy all day. Moving out, you know." I stepped aside with a welcoming smile. "Come in. Take a look around your new place." Rachel pushed past me eagerly, Derek closed behind her, both of them chattering excitedly about furniture placement and color schemes. I watched their faces carefully as they took in the living room, the bare white walls, the horrifying linoleum floor, the complete absence of anything that had made this house special. The silence was immediate and absolute. "Where's?" Rachel started, then stopped, her mouth hanging open as she turned in a slow circle. Her eyes darted around the room frantically, like she might find the missing improvements hiding in a corner somewhere. "Where's all this stuff?" "What stuff?" I asked innocently. "The floors. The beautiful hardwood floors. And the built-ins. The crown molding. The everything." Her voice was rising with each word, approaching panic territory. "Oh, that stuff." I kept my voice light and conversational. "I took it with me when I moved out." Derek's face was slowly turning an interesting shade of red. "You took the floors? The actual floors?" "Well, they were my floors. I paid for them, I had them installed, I maintained them for 3 years. Same with everything else." "But..." Rachel was walking through the house now, her heels clicking against the awful linoleum as she took in the full scope of what was missing. "This isn't what we expected at all. This is exactly what Mom and Dad gave you," I replied calmly. "Their house. The house they owned before I spent 3 years and $32,000 fixing it up." Dad cleared his throat, the sound echoing strangely in the empty room. "Emma, I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding here." "No misunderstanding at all." I pulled out my phone and showed them the before photos I'd taken when I first moved in 3 years ago. The water damage, the peeling paint, the broken fixtures, the floors so warped you could lose small objects in the gaps between boards. This is what the house looked like when you gave me the keys. This is what it looks like now. Same house, just without all the improvements I made. Mom's face had gone very pale, and she was clutching her purse like it might anchor her to reality. "Emma, you can't strip a house like that. That's not normal." "Actually, I can. And it's completely legal." I held up the thick folder that Jake had returned to me after we'd finished. I kept every receipt, every permit application, every piece of documentation. Everything I removed belongs to me legally and unquestionably. I opened the folder and pulled out a few random receipts. "Want to see the paperwork for the hardwood floors? Or maybe the permits for the electrical work?" Rachel was back from her tour of the house now, and she looked like she might throw up. Or cry. Or both. "Emma, this is horrible. It looks like a condemned building." "Actually, it's exactly what your parents gave you. Nothing more, nothing less." I gestured around the room like I was showing off a prize. Same square footage, same number of bedrooms and bathrooms, same basic structure. Everything that was here when Mom and Dad bought it 20 years ago is still here. But it's hideous. Derek finally found his voice, though it came out as more of a squeak. "That flooring is... What even is that pattern?" "I believe it's called Harvest Gold Geometric," I replied helpfully. "Very popular in the 70s. Extremely durable, as you can see." "Emma." Derek's voice was carefully controlled now, like he was talking to someone who might be dangerous. "This isn't reasonable. Nobody does something like this." "You know what's not reasonable? Giving away someone else's house without telling them first. Expecting someone to move out in 2 days. Asking them to leave behind thousands of dollars worth of furniture and improvements like it's nothing." I looked each of them in the eye, one by one. "I'm being completely reasonable. You wanted the house, you got the house. Just not the house I created with my own money and labor. But we can't live here." Rachel was full-on wailing now, tears streaming down her face. "It's like a slum." "Hey now," I said, putting on a hurt expression. "That slum was good enough for me for 3 years. Well, before I made it beautiful, of course." Derek was frantically scrolling through his phone now, probably Googling whether what I'd done was legal. "Good luck with that, buddy." I'd spent half the night researching property law and consulting with a lawyer friend who specialized in real estate disputes. "There has to be something legal about this," he muttered. "You can't just gut a house and take everything." I didn't gut anything. I removed my personal property when I moved out, which is exactly what any renter or occupant does. I held up my folder again. "And I can prove ownership of every single item I took. Want me to call my lawyer? She's standing by." The silence stretched on, broken only by Rachel's increasingly dramatic sobbing. Where are we supposed to live? Derek finally asked, his voice small and defeated. In the house you were just given as an engagement gift, I replied cheerfully. Or you could rent an apartment like most young couples do. Or maybe Derek could move out of his mom's basement and get his own place that you could move into together. Derek's face flushed red at the mention of his living situation. This is vindictive, Dad said quietly. This is cruel, Emma. No, Dad. This is fair. This is what happens when you give away someone's home without asking them first. I kept my voice level, but I could feel the anger burning in my chest. This is what happens when you treat your daughter like her time, her money, and her feelings don't matter. But we raised you, Mom said desperately, tears starting to form in her eyes. We're your family. You're supposed to care about your sister's happiness. Family. I let the word hang in the air like a bad smell. Is it family to give away someone's home without discussion? Is it family to tell someone they have 2 days to pack up their entire life? Is it family to dismiss $30,000 of investment like it's pocket change? None of them answered. Because if that's how this family treats each other, then maybe I'm better off as an orphan. Rachel's sobs got louder. I just wanted a nice house to start my marriage. I didn't know you'd do something so horrible. You didn't know because you never asked. None of you asked how I felt about any of this. You just assumed I'd go along with whatever you decided because I always do. I looked around the room one more time, taking in their shocked faces and the bare bones of the house I'd once loved. Well, I'm not going along with it anymore. Derek's champagne bottle sat unopened on the kitchen counter, looking somehow sad and abandoned. The celebration they'd planned had turned into something very different. The locks have been changed, by the way, I added helpfully. The new keys are on the kitchen counter, along with contact information for all the utilities. They'll need to be transferred to your names by the end of the week or they'll be shut off. There's also a binder with warranty information for the major appliances and the HVAC system. You know, all the basic homeowner stuff. I picked up my purse and the small overnight bag I packed with essentials. Everything else was already moved into my new apartment, a gorgeous loft downtown that was going to look absolutely stunning once I installed all my custom built-ins and refinished flooring. Emma, wait. Dad's voice stopped me at the door. I turned back, curious despite myself. We can work this out. We can fix this. We're family, we don't let things like this destroy us. No, Dad. We're not working this out. This is already worked out. I gestured around the room. Rachel wanted the house, she got the house. I wanted my belongings, I took my belongings. Everyone gets exactly what they're entitled to, nothing more and nothing less. But the house is worthless now. The words slipped out before he could stop them, and the truth of what he just said hit everyone in the room like a slap. Exactly, I said softly. The house is worth exactly what it was before I lived in it. If that's worthless, then maybe you should have thought about that before you gave it away. I opened the front door and paused on the threshold. Oh, and Rachel? You might want to invest in some area rugs. That linoleum gets really cold in the winter, and the heating bills are going to be brutal without proper insulation under the floors. The door closed behind me with a satisfying click, and I walked to my car without looking back. My phone started buzzing immediately, calls, texts, voicemails. I turned it off and drove to my new apartment in peaceful silence. 6 months later, I'm writing this from my beautiful downtown loft. The build-ins look even better here than they ever did in the old house, perfectly fitted into the exposed brick walls and complementing the industrial ceiling and original hardwood floors that I didn't have to install myself. The custom light fixtures create exactly the ambience I'd always wanted but never quite achieved before. My refurbished antique pieces look stunning against the modern backdrop. It's everything I never knew I wanted in a home. Through mutual acquaintances, I heard the rest of the story. Derek took one look at the house's heating bills that first winter and noped out of the relationship faster than you could say utility budget. Apparently, houses built in the 1970s aren't particularly energy efficient, especially when they don't have proper insulation or modern windows. Who knew? Rachel moved back in with our parents after the breakup, claiming she was too traumatized by the whole experience to live independently. The house sat empty for 4 months while they tried to figure out what to do with it. They eventually spent $15,000 on basic improvements just to make it rentable: new flooring, fresh paint, updated fixtures. Even then, they could only get about 60% of market rent because the house still looked like it was decorated by someone who thought the Carter administration represented the height of interior design. Last month, they finally managed to sell it to a young couple who saw potential in a fixer-upper with good bones. The sale price was exactly what similar houses in the neighborhood had been selling for before I'd done all my improvements. Funny how that works. Dad called me twice after the sale, leaving voicemails about how they were sorry for the misunderstanding and asking if I wanted to sit down and talk things through as a family. He mentioned that they'd learned their lesson about better communication and that they understood now how much work I'd put into the house. I didn't call him back. You see, the thing about bridges is that sometimes, when people burn them down, they're actually doing you a favor. They're showing you exactly who they are and what they think you're worth. They're clearing away all the debris and confusion so you can see the relationship for what it really is. My family thought I was worth nothing. They thought my time, my money, my investment, my feelings, all of it was disposable compared to Rachel's convenience and happiness. They thought I was the kind of person who would just absorb whatever they decided to do to me and say thank you for the privilege. Well, now they know what nothing actually looks like. It looks like a house with good bones and absolutely no soul. It looks like empty rooms and bare walls and floors so ugly they make your retinas hurt. It looks like the difference between a house and a home, between a gift and an inheritance, between family and people who happen to share your DNA. The really satisfying part? 3 weeks ago, I got a text from an unknown number. It was Rachel, messaging from yet another new phone because I blocked her previous 2 numbers. Emma, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I really think we need to talk. Derek and I broke up and I'm having a really hard time. I've been thinking a lot about what happened and I realize maybe we could have handled things better. The house situation was really complicated and maybe there were some misunderstandings on both sides. I miss you and I miss having you in my life. Could we maybe meet for coffee and try to work things out? I promise I'm different now and I really want to make things right between us. Family should stick together, you know? Please don't let this stupid fight destroy our relationship forever. Love you, Rach. I stared at that message for a long time. The careful wording. The attempt to reframe what they'd done as a misunderstanding instead of a betrayal. The suggestion that we were both somehow equally at fault. The manipulation disguised as vulnerability. And then I noticed what was missing from the message. What had been missing from every single communication from my family since that night 6 months ago. Not one of them had ever actually apologized. Not I'm sorry we gave away your house without telling you. Not I'm sorry we dismissed your investment and your feelings. Not I'm sorry we treated you like your life didn't matter. Just maybe we could have handled things better and there were misunderstandings and this stupid fight like it was some petty sibling squabble instead of them systematically destroying my financial security and emotional well-being for Rachel's benefit. I deleted the message without responding. 2 days later, she tried again. Emma, I saw on Mom's Facebook that you got a promotion at work. Congratulations. I always knew you were going to be successful. I've been thinking more about everything that happened, and I realize now that the house situation must have been really hard for you. I was so caught up in wedding planning and being excited about Derek, thank God that's over lol, that I probably didn't consider your feelings enough. I know you put a lot of work into that place. Maybe we could talk about some kind of arrangement? I'm sure we can figure something out that works for everyone. I really miss my big sister. Some kind of arrangement. Figure something out. Still no actual apology, just more manipulation wrapped up in fake sisterly affection. I blocked that number too. The thing is, I did get that promotion. Senior Marketing Director, with a salary that finally reflects what I'm actually worth and benefits that include a housing allowance I can use toward my mortgage. Because yes, I bought my loft. Turns out, when you're not spending your money fixing up someone else's house, you can save for your own down payment pretty quickly. My apartment, my actual, legally owned, deed in my name apartment, is everything that old house could have been if I'd been working for myself instead of for people who saw my efforts as free labor. The exposed brick walls showcase my custom built-ins perfectly. The original hardwood floors gleam under the vintage light fixtures I've collected. Every single improvement I make increases my own equity instead of someone else's. And when friends come over, they're genuinely impressed. Not because they're obligated to be nice to me, not because they're celebrating someone else's good fortune, but because I've created something beautiful that belongs entirely to me. You have such incredible taste, my friend Sarah said last weekend, running her hand along the custom shelving I'd installed in the living room. This place feels like it should be in a magazine. Thanks, I said, and meant it. I did all the work myself. Really? That's amazing. You're so talented. And you know what? I am talented. I'm good at creating beautiful spaces. I'm good at seeing potential where other people see problems. I'm good at working hard and making smart investments and turning visions into reality. I was just doing it for the wrong people. Last month, I started a small side business doing renovation consulting. Helping people plan their projects, connecting them with good contractors, making sure they understand exactly what they're investing in and why. Word of mouth has been incredible. Apparently, there are a lot of people out there who've been burned by family members or contractors or landlords who don't respect their investments. My first client was a young woman whose boyfriend had been pressuring her to renovate his house with her savings as an investment in their future together. After 2 hours of consultation, she realized he was asking her to improve his equity while she got nothing but the promise that he might marry her someday. She broke up with him instead and used her savings as a down payment on her own place. You probably saved me from making the biggest financial mistake of my life, she told me when I helped her plan her first renovation project. I can't believe I almost fell for that. I can believe it. I lived it for 3 years. But here's what I've learned, there's a huge difference between being generous and being a doormat. There's a difference between helping family and being exploited by people who happen to share your genes. There's a difference between making sacrifices for love and having your sacrifices taken for granted. My family taught me that difference the hard way. 3 months ago, Mom started showing up at my office building. Not coming inside, just lingering. In the coffee shop across the street, at the bus stop, walking past the entrance like she just happened to be in the neighborhood. My coworkers started commenting on the older woman who seems to be watching the building. Finally, my assistant buzzed me on the intercom, "Emma? There's a woman in the lobby who says she's your mother. She's asking to speak with you." I told her I was in meetings all day. Mom tried 4 more times over the next 2 weeks. Each time, I had my assistant turn her away. On the 5th attempt, she left a handwritten letter. I threw it away without reading it. Because here's the thing they still don't understand, this isn't about the house anymore. It's not about the money or the work or even the betrayal, though all of that matters. It's about respect. For 32 years, I was the accommodating one. The helpful one. The one who put everyone else's needs first and never complained when that meant my own needs got ignored. I was the daughter who helped with every family project, the sister who loaned money she never got back, the family member who could always be counted on to say yes. And they took that for granted. They took me for granted. They thought I was so eager to please, so desperate for their approval, that they could literally give away my home without asking and I'd just accept it. Maybe even thank them for teaching me the value of flexibility and putting family first. They thought wrong. The woman who spent 3 years rebuilding a house for people who saw her as free labor is gone. In her place is someone who knows exactly what her time and skills are worth. Someone who doesn't give away her work for free. Someone who expects to be treated with the same respect she shows others. Someone who has learned the most valuable lesson of all: you teach people how to treat you. For 3 decades, I taught my family that they could treat me however they wanted and I'd absorb it with a smile. I taught them that my boundaries were negotiable and my investments in them were non-refundable gifts rather than contributions to be acknowledged and respected. I taught them that I didn't value myself, so they shouldn't value me either. Well, class is over. These days, my life is beautifully, peacefully quiet. No family drama. No one expecting me to fix their problems or fund their dreams or sacrifice my own goals for their convenience. No one taking my generosity for granted or treating my kindness as weakness. Just me, in my beautiful apartment, building a business and a life that actually belongs to me. Sometimes people ask if I miss them. If I regret cutting ties so completely. If I think I overreacted. And honestly, the only thing I regret is that it took me 32 years to learn that family isn't about blood or obligation or shared history. Family is about respect. It's about people who celebrate your successes instead of taking credit for them. It's about people who consider your feelings before making decisions that affect your life. It's about people who see your contributions as gifts to be treasured, not services to be expected. By that definition, my family isn't the people who raised me. My family is Sarah, who helped me move into my new place and brought champagne to celebrate my promotion. It's Jake and his crew, who understood exactly why I needed to take back what was mine and helped me do it with skill and pride. It's my clients, who trust me with their dreams and respect my expertise. It's my coworkers, who become genuine friends instead of people I'm obligated to tolerate. It's everyone who treats me like I matter. And you know what the best part is? None of them have ever asked me to prove my worth by giving away everything I've worked for. Because that's not what love looks like. That's what exploitation looks like. And I'm done being exploited. Last week, I got one final message. This time it was from Dad, sent through LinkedIn of all places. "Emma, I hope you know that despite everything that's happened, we love you and we're proud of who you've become. Your mother and sister miss you terribly, and I think enough time has passed that we could all sit down and have an adult conversation about moving forward. We're family, and family forgives. There's nothing that can't be worked out if we all approach it with open hearts and good intentions. Please consider giving us a chance to make things right." I read it twice, looking for the apology that still wasn't there. Looking for any acknowledgement that they'd done something wrong beyond having good intentions that somehow went awry. Instead of deleting it, I responded, "Dad, I appreciate you reaching out, but I think there's been a fundamental misunderstanding about what happened 6 months ago. You didn't make a mistake or handle things poorly due to miscommunication. You made a deliberate choice to prioritize Rachel's wants over my financial security and emotional well-being. You decided that my 3 years of work and $30,000 of investment were worth less than avoiding an awkward conversation with your other daughter. That wasn't a failure of good intentions, that was a failure of respect and basic decency. Until you can acknowledge that and take responsibility for the harm you caused, there's nothing to discuss. I wish you well, but I'm not interested in making things right with people who don't think they did anything wrong in the first place." I never heard back. And that tells me everything I need to know about whether I made the right decision. So here I am, 8 months later, writing this from my gorgeous loft while planning my next renovation project, this time on a house I'm buying as an investment property. A house where every dollar I spend will increase my own equity. Where every hour of work will benefit my own future. Where every improvement I make will be mine to keep, sell, or give away as I choose. It's amazing what you can accomplish when you stop working for people who don't appreciate you. The woman who got blindsided at an engagement party and lost everything she'd worked for? She's gone. In her place is someone who knows her worth and isn't afraid to demand it. Someone who builds beautiful spaces for people who respect and value her work. Someone who has learned that the best revenge isn't just living well, it's living authentically. And authentically, I'm happier than I've ever been. Turns out, when you stop trying to earn love from people who aren't capable of giving it, you free up a lot of time and energy to build relationships with people who are. Rachel can keep the house. Mom and Dad can keep their regrets. And I'll keep building the life I should have been building all along, one that belongs entirely to me.